And thank you for standing by. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. All participants are in a listen-only mode until the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. To ask a question at that time, please press star 1 and clearly record your name for question introduction. I would like to turn the call over to your host, Irene Gricke. Thank you, ma'am.
Great. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to our Finex webinar today on disaster recovery and preparedness. We're very excited to have all of you here today joining us, and we're also pleased to have some guest speakers today from other federal agencies. We're joined by Suzanne Isaacs from the HUD Office of Housing Counseling and also Colleen Tressler from the Federal Commission, who both have a lot of expertise in disaster issues, and we're very glad to be having what is clearly a very topical call, unfortunately, but it is topical. So thanks for everyone for joining us. So what I'm going to do, is just start off quickly. First, as federal employees, we have to give our standard disclaimer, which is that this presentation is being made by CFPB representative on behalf of the Bureau, but it does not constitute legal interpretation, guidance, or advice. Any opinions stated are those of the presenters and not the Bureaus. We have to say that every time. Generally, I think almost everybody on this call presumably knows who we are, but just so we're all on the same page, CFPB is a new federal agency that helps consumer finance markets work by making rules more effective, consistently and fairly enforcing those rules, and by empowering consumers to take more control over their economic lives. And it's that last part on taking control of their economic lives and helping consumers that is what Finex is about and what the call is really focused on today. Again, just quickly as background, in the consumer-facing side of the Bureau, there are multiple offices. We're Financial Education, which is charged with educating, empowering consumers to make better informed financial decisions. Generally, we also have special population offices, including Office of Older Americans, who is joining us today to talk about a little bit of their work, and offices that look at military service members, students, economically vulnerable, and others. And don't ask anybody, it's a very busy slide, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knew what the CFPB Financial Education Exchange is, or Finex. I put this slide up really to show you there's lots going on, and so surely you want to be part of it. So probably most of the people on this call are part of Finex. You probably got a newsletter about this webinar you're on today. But if you haven't, we encourage you to sign up by emailing cfpb_finex@cfpb.gov and say you want to subscribe. You can actually now do that directly on our website a couple days ago. And basically we are a vehicle to get our materials out to people who help consumers with financial decisions, to get our tools and resources out to all of you, to hear from you through surveys, meetings, and other opportunities to hear what you're learning, what's working for you, and to kind of help increase discussion of financial education amongst practitioners generally. So, again, anyone who isn't getting a regular newsletter that's called CFPB Finex News and Updates, please do sign up so that you'll find out about things like this in the future. We have almost 700 people who are in that network right now. And so I'll just note we have a resource inventory with all of our materials that you can find online. And this slide has changed for the first time in a long time. We just finished redesigning our web page, Financial Education for Adults, that has all of our tools and resources in a much sort of easier to navigate way. It only launched a few days ago, so it's improved much even since last week. So I encourage any of you who aren't familiar with our work or who want to see what we have to this page, finance.gov/adult-financial-education. You can also navigate to it directly from the landing page for the Bureau at consumerfinance.gov. That's all our background. I'll pop over the LinkedIn slide. We'd like to just do that, one, to make sure everybody's on the same page, and two, to give everyone a chance to log into the WebEx and get through the phone login. So we'll turn to our topic of the day, disaster recovery and preparedness. Again, very, very topical. What we're going to do is we have our two guest speakers, and then two folks from the CFPB will speak briefly. And what we will do is, if you have questions during the presentations, you can send them in through the Q&A function. I will be monitoring that in case there's any kind of urgent or immediate things that you want answered. And then after the presentations are done, we will open for voice questions. So at that point, we'll give you instructions on how to do that. And then you can also have your phone line opened up to ask questions directly as well. So, and the last thing I will mention, because this always comes up, is that if you like a copy of the PowerPoint, we can send it to you, but you'll need to ask for it via email. If don't ask for it through the Q&A function, because once the webinar ends, that all goes away. I have no way to keep those. If you email that Finex inbox, the CFPB _ Finex at CFPB.gov, and just say you'd like the PowerPoint, we will send it out to you afterwards. I'll repeat that again later, and you'll see the email address again later, but just so you know, we're happy to do that. So with all that background, we're ready to get into the conversation here. So I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Suzanne Isaacs from the Office of Housing Counseling Disaster Assistance Recovery Team, obviously very relevant to this discussion. Suzanne, turning it over to you, and so, should I go slide?
Sure.
All right.
Thanks, Irene. So I am with the Office of Housing Counseling, and I'm the lead for the Disaster Assistance Recovery Team. And we established the team about 3 years ago at the beginning of some increased disasters across the country. And so recently we've been totally immersed in Harvey, Hurricane Irma, and now Maria. And what we do during the disaster response is we reach out to the agencies that are involved in a particular area, such as the entire state of Texas, our state of Florida, Georgia, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and network at the moment does consist of about 1,900 housing counseling agencies. And so while we are responding to emergency, we still are involved with monitoring and compliance of the housing counseling agencies across the country, looking at conflicts of interest, making sure they have quality in their housing counseling, and we just released the national exam for housing counselors. And so we now have a new standard that will take place in just under 3 years. Housing counselors have to become certified by the Office of Housing Counseling, very similar to a loan officer taking an exam or a realtor. It's a one-time exam, and they have to become certified. If an agency doesn't have a certified counselor, then they cannot do housing counseling. So what I'm going to do today is actually a live webinar, and up on the toolkit there, you're going to see 2 links, and I believe the second link is the most important link. If you want to bookmark anything, it would be that link. You would cut it and paste it, put it in your browser, take it to your favorites, and I'll show you why. And so I'm just going to flip up there to my link.
We're going to do something very brave here.
We're going to be brave.
We're going to do screen sharing. Whoops, we're going to have a very, very brief view of my emails.
And there you go.
And now we're going to go. This is actually a live demo, and hopefully it will well. And so, okay, now Suzanne's in charge.
I'm in the commando chair, and this is that link that takes you to HUD Exchange, which is, we've been migrating from HUD.gov to HUD Exchange, because in this venue we can do a lot more on the platform. We're not so limited. We have live links. We do updates on a daily basis, which we do during the hurricane response. Just find it much more friendlier and up to date. So what I want to do is take you on a live tour. This is a handy page, and you'll see why as we go through it. First off, if you're going, gee, I wonder if they had a declaration on FEMA for this area. This is the page we constantly are watching. An area first becomes an emergency. It's a declaration that's by the governor of the state. And he raises his hand and say, we need help, Mr. President or Ms. President. And then at that point, the president makes the decision whether to declare it a disaster, and that's when FEMA rolls into the site and money starts flowing. I check this page every day to see the latest, and right now you're seeing Puerto Rico, all Georgia, Alabama, Florida. But what's interesting about this is that you have to check it and click on something to see the status, because it looked like a declaration, but this is just listing disasters. And so as I click on this one, I noticed that the Seminole tribe was involved in the hurricane, but right now public assistance is not approved for that. So it may not go any further than an emergency. And the same thing is happening with the big fires in California. I keep watching that, and it has not, even with the loss of 2,000 houses or homes, been declared a disaster, just an emergency. So this is a FEMA page that you're constantly watching and looking for if you're just curious about, has a state received the money, since you're involved in financial aspect of it.
Can I have a question? So a disaster and an emergency are
two different things. Okay. And handled entirely different.
Okay,
and
that's
then,
helpful.
Yeah, and then and I didn't know that at the beginning. And so an emergency is a notice that there may be some extra assistance, or we're aware of it. There may be some thing for the states that allows them to call on troops or something like that, but money may never flow.
Okay, if it reaches the level of a disaster.
Only if it reaches the level of a disaster.
You
can see the actual disasters that have been declared, and that was no doubt down here. You see even Gen A, extended assistance, and so forth. I'll show you some of the resources for HUD disasters, and I want to take you here. Please note that now we're back at the old platform, HUD.gov, and everything has not migrated over to HUD Exchange, and so you still want to look at this one to get information on your mortgage assistance area. Could be migrated over to the new exchange. And so as information on mortgage insurance for disaster victims, the HA Section 203K, rehab, tied home improvement loans. So our information around that is available at this particular site. So now HUD Exchange. The next resource I'm going to take you to is the CBG DR Toolkit, which is very handy. You want to go to the right-hand side and click on Program Implementation. Here, you run down the page, there's tools. It's very handy and very clear about once the CDBG and he clicks in, they have a lot of rules and regulations around rehabs, how intakes are to be handled, their specific program guidelines, how damage assessments are made, and your rehab checklist for your home, standards. There's a lot of specifications. And what I'm noticing as we go into these disaster areas that are in the floodplain or the new noted floodplain, what happens is often homeowners don't realize that at the end of the day they're going to have to bankrupt. And so that's disheartening, but they need a lot of guidance around their funding. Because they've got their mortgage, now they need to get a rehab mortgage that they may or may not be able to afford. And then FEMA is doing is these disaster-prone areas and declared a new flood plain or an old one. They're requiring the homes to be raised a foot or 2, 8, and for every foot it's $20,000 to raise it. That's on top of all the rehab money that you need to do anyway. So at the end of the day, the guys that are working as teachers making $3,000 a year each in a lot of these areas, and they've got 2 or 3 or 4 kids, they're not able to make the numbers come together for themselves. Toolkit I want to take you to is just be aware that homelessness is a huge issue in recovery. Many of the homeless people have drug, alcohol problems, mental health issues, and when they show up to the shelters, there's big issues they don't fit as problems. So it's really giving them equal access, getting them, let's say, housing counseling that they need, just like everybody else, because they lost their home on the street, but now they need housing. And so there's a whole separate guide around homelessness and how to work with them. And it's recommended wrapping social work around them. VA is often involved, and to get back on their feet, even financially. What I would like to take you to is process of housing counseling, which is very thorough. Launching page right here on Disaster Recovery Toolkit. And so on the left-hand side, note we have a direct connection on this page as well to CDBG-DR. And then I want to point out our emergency preparedness toolkit because, again, that's very different than a disaster toolkit. Emergency toolkit, got information here, guidance for housing counseling agencies, and this is a handy one for everybody. Emergency preparedness and recovery resources. That could be for your group, not just housing counseling agencies. Always have FEMA at the top. You may or may not get involved in emergency, but found the page. We've got floodsmart.gov, American Red Cross, emergency shelter location. You click on that, you can find a shelter in your location. Some well website, and all kinds of resources. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've got them on this one site for you, and they're live, active links. We'll go to page. And so now on this toolkit, I want to do the disaster let's see. Get back up to services for housing counselors, and that's really what I've been doing since I believe the second or third week in August. And so this page, the advantage of HUD Exchange, we literally update this every day. And I'm going to take you on a brief tour for it. This would be a good page to mark and favorite as well because it gets you right some information that you might need. Peek at the Housing Counselor Disaster Recovery Toolkit. That's back to this page. And the disaster recovery flyers that housing counseling agencies use across the country. And we have quite languages, and some there today, they've already changed it. I want to be able to, let me show you one. Arabic. And color, black and white, because some agencies, and two colors. Some agencies want a little color, some agencies don't want any color. Just black and white, and so we listen to them, and that's what we're doing. But we're finding that the disasters are all over the country right now with a large population of people speaking different languages. So we're following the FHEO policy now and translating into 17 different languages.
So those are flyers that you could print out, again, whether you're a counselor or not, and hand out to people around, assess them on fraud and scams and other things related to. Exactly. Great.
Did it. And we have printed ones as well that we sent to agencies. Quick example is Puerto Rico, and some agencies in Florida still don't have any internet connection, no electricity, and so we'll mail them hard copies. Like Puerto Rico, they have, I believe it's 9 housing counseling agencies. None of them are working at the moment, as well as in Virgin Islands. So this is a friendly page if you're this is a good page for yourself. We've got disaster.gov located on this page, which is packed full of information of what to do in a disaster. This is where you can apply for financial assistance. Check status of an area. I did that this morning, and it even led me into some shelter where I can get shelter. Again, there's the FEMA resource page on Maria that we were just at. I just want to flip to it as a reminder of the links. And MAC Assistance resource page for Maria. We have information, education tools. This would be here for you all. Home buying fraud, way up on all respects, and otherwise during recovery. Done in Office of Housing Counseling, even though this has been because it's our first hurricane, we have separate resources for each hurricane because they're all individual. There are additional general hurricane resources. There's an upcoming webinar on servicing FHA insured in disaster areas because that's a unique situation. There's Housing Assistance Finance Agency, mortgage relief for homeowners, and all the details there. Then a post-disaster resource page that gets really tricky after a disaster in these warm areas like Louisiana, Houston, within a week or less, terrible mold moves in and it's very dangerous. And if the hurricane doesn't get the house, the mold does. And the problem is if they don't have flood insurance, homeowners insurance just covers maybe a third of whatever happened to them. And if they're in a $300,000 house, they're going to eat the rest. And then they have to get a new loan on top of everything else. It's really a challenge, financial challenge. The drinking water is normally polluted, other indoor and outdoor hazards. SDA, rural development, disaster assistance has extra funds and monies for the rural areas. Of course, we American Red Cross, finders, granting immediate foreclosure relief is right here. And apparently, I saw something in the news or one of the HUD.gov things yesterday where they're getting ready to perhaps extend that because this is becoming dated. You can't get your act together in 90 days forbearance. A lot of places still won't even have electricity in 90 days. That's much it for the tour of the website. There's a lot of information here to digest, and if you're bored one day, you can just click your heart out. But if you go to the first page that I gave you and just keep that as your main resource, you can get to everywhere else from there.
All right, switch seats here. Great. So thank you so much, Suzanne. And what I didn't say at the beginning is that, of course, we've got we're going to talk today both about sort of the broad range of tools and resources from the federal government, and Suzanne has covered that really well, and also go into some specific ideas for individuals around preparing for disasters as well as recovering from them and managing finances afterwards. So this is kind of our maybe not 30,000, maybe 2,000 foot level, and we're going to now we're going to hone in closer. We're going to quickly stop the screen and go back into, all right. So we should now be back. Hopefully everyone is seeing the PowerPoint slide. So I'll just pop through. This is what you just showed. I'm just going through. These are the slides that Suzanne had sent, so you can see some of the things that we just actually went through on a live piece, hurricanes page. So thank you very much. And if you have questions for Suzanne, again, you can send them to the Q&A function, or we will have time for discussion at the end for voice questions. So that kind of overview of federal resources and some of the great things HUD has for financial educators will to FTC, Federal Trade Commission. And again, most of you on the phone are probably in a financial education practitioner role. Some of the things you'll hear in the rest of the presentation may be framed as information for individuals, but this is information you could then share, of course, with the people you serve. So obviously we'll be thinking about it in the context of a financial educator, that a lot of the things we'll be talking about are resources that would be useful to the people you're working with. So we'll turn it over to Colleen. Welcome, Colleen.
Thank you so much, Irene, and welcome everyone. I want to give a brief overview of what the FTC is doing, working with our regional offices in Dallas, Atlanta, and our New York office actually has jurisdiction over Puerto Rico. So there's a lot going on in the agency. I just kind of want to focus on the consumer education and outreach component today. So I want to share first with everyone a screenshot of dealing with weather emergencies. This is ftc.gov/weatheremergencies. It's kind of soup to nuts. I have this information in English and Spanish. We've been doing this work for quite a while. In fact, this website was originally launched in 2005 in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, and we focus on all sorts of things: hurricanes, tornadoes, mudslides, floods, wildfires, name it. We generally try to get this information out to people as well as media outlets. So taking a look at the page here, you'll see on the right rail, there are related items, related blog posts, and you see just a couple. Since August 28th, we have issued 7 blog posts dealing with the various hurricanes and follow-up issues like charity scams, how to donate wisely, cleanup scams that a lot of residents and businesses are dealing with. And we also issued a blog post in September for National Preparedness Month. So, you know, like we were saying before, you may not know other people are dealing with an emergency right now, maybe or not, but it's always good to be thinking forward about how to prepare for an event that might affect you and your community. It really takes me into the next slide of topics I want to cover today. There are basically 3, and then there's some key websites and phone numbers, but I want to talk about preparing for a weather emergency, not necessarily, you know, how to pack up your house, but this is from a financial aspect. And then we're going to talk about identity theft and really getting back on your feet financially. Next slide has some tips on financial readiness in case of emergency. The first thing we want to say, and don't wait for an emergency to happen, is organize your finances. We like to say here at the FTC, when it comes to preparing for situations like weather emergencies, financial readiness is important as a flashlight with fully charged batteries. Having your financial documents up to date in one place and portable can make a big difference at a tense time. You want to check your insurance. Find if any home, health, or other insurance policy you have will pay for temporary shelter, replacement clothing, furniture, or other items if you're affected by a hurricane, tornado, or other weather event. Conduct a household inventory. Make a list of your possessions and document those with photos or a video. This could help if you're filing insurance claims. Recommend that you keep 1 copy of your inventory in your home in a lockable, fireproof file box, and keep another in a safe deposit box or another secure location. We also recommend that you buy a lockable, fireproof file box, like we said, and place important documents in the box. Keep the box in a secure, accessible location on a shelf in your home so you can grab it and go. So whether that's your entryway closet where you have your coats, hats, scarves, etc., or just someplace close to an exit. it if a need arises. And you can imagine some of the content would be the household inventory, a list of emergency contacts, including family members who live outside the affected area, copies of prescriptions, health insurance cards or information, policy numbers for your insurance, whether it be auto, flood, renters, homeowners, and a list of the telephone numbers for those insurance companies. Copy of other important financial and family records or notes about where they are, including things like deeds, titles, wills, birth, marriage certificates, passports, and relevant employee benefit and retirement documents. Want to keep a list always, regardless of whether it's an emergency or not, phone numbers or email addresses for your creditors and financial institutions, landlords and utility companies, a list of bank, loan, credit card, mortgage, lease, debit, and ATM, and investment account numbers. We all know you shouldn't be carrying your Social Security cards with you. They should be in this box. Backups of financial data you keep on your computer, keep that in there, and an extra set of keys for your house and car, of course the key to your safe deposit box, maybe even some cash, because like what we're seeing in Puerto Rico, there is no electricity. People are running out of cash. They can't get cash. So it's always good to keep that in a secure location. And then last point here is we say rent a safe deposit box. And, of course, this is for storing important documents. Some of these documents might include deeds, titles, and other ownership records for your homes, cars, RVs, boats, whatever you own, motorcycles, credit, lease, and other financial and payment. Again, birth certificates, naturalization papers, Social Security cards, licenses, divorce papers, anything that has a legal bearing. It's a really good idea to keep copies. Of course, you want to keep appraisals of expensive jewelry or heirlooms, anything of value, certificates for stocks, bonds, other investments, trust agreements, living wills, power of attorney, home improvement records, and a copy of your own will. Going on to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about theft after a weather emergency. As you recover from a weather emergency, or your clients do, you need to share personal information to get relief benefits or replacement identification documents from government agencies and organizations, and we urge people to be cautious at this time. It's a very emotional, stressful period, but you do need to use caution. Identity thieves may pose as government officials or representatives for government agencies, so it's our advice to ask for identification and, when possible, initiate contact yourself using information posted on official websites or in official information dissemination areas. So if somebody says they work for somebody, check out. You can always ask for a phone number or go to the website. If you find that you inadvertently gave out your personal information to a thief, if your wallet was stolen, or if you're worried that your information may be accessible to thieves, we really encourage people to take a look at our publication, Identity Theft, What to Do, to know what to do. It's only about 6 pages. It's really like the USA Today version of what you need to know about identity theft. If you inadvertently gave out your Social Security number to a thief or know that it was stolen, you may want to place a fraud alert on your credit reports. Fraud alerts, as we know, can help prevent identity thieves from opening new accounts, but there's a caveat with that. That you place a fraud alert on your credit file, companies take certain steps to verify your identity before they issue you new credit. So there may be a delay in getting that credit, especially if you've lost some or all of your identification documents. If you're concerned that you may be a victim of identity theft, it's important to check your credit report. If an identity theft thief opening new credit accounts in your names, these accounts are likely to show in your report. And of course, we all know you can order your report free of charge at annualcreditreport.com or call the toll-free number, which is 877-328228. And FTC has two different websites for identity theft. To learn more about guarding against identity theft, these are our publications, our videos, our audio recordings. You visit ftc.gov/identitytheft. Identitytheft.gov is where you report an actual occurrence of identity theft and learn the steps you need to recover from experience. We have, pre-filled forms for you. You can set up an account. You can follow your progress. You can come back to that account and revisit it, add information, delete information, whatever you need to do. So I think the next thing I want to talk about, the next slide, is covering back on your feet financially. And of course, everybody wants to do this as soon as possible. People who are involved in these types of weather emergencies and disasters may have to leave their homes without IDs, checks, credit and debit cards, and other documents. They also might be without access to a bank account or paycheck for some time. So if they need to get money, they need to understand their options for paying bills and replacing important documents. And when you go onto the ftc.gov/weatheremergencies website, there will be a list of contacts there that may help you gain your financial footing. And I'm going to go through a few of those, but I just want you to know that there's a much longer list on that website. The first thing that we recommend is for people to call their creditors and ask for help. Credit card companies, lenders, financial institutions, landlords, and utilities may offer help to people affected by disasters, and they may be willing to defer your payments or offer extended repayment plans, extend grace periods, waive late fees, raise your credit limit, or refrain from reporting delinquencies to the credit reporting agencies. They may postpone collection, repossessions, and foreclosures. If you're a homeowner, if you think your home is uninhabitable, you still have a mortgage, so you need to contact your lender to discuss those options. If you think it will take several months before you can make payments, you might want to be in touch with a credit counselor. Just have that support from an objective third party to kind of help you through this process. And the FTC has information about request to ask when shopping for a credit counselor. Lost your financial records and need help identifying your creditors. This is, again, where your credit report comes in handy because it'll provide a list of who those creditors are. Going on to the second bullet, we encourage people to report lost or stolen credit, ATM, or charge to the issuer as soon as possible. If you don't have the phone number, there is the toll-free directory assistance for most companies in the United States, and that's 1-800-555-1212. You also want to contact your utility companies and let them know you've lost your belongings in the disaster. Ask them to waive late fees and let you defer payments or put you on a different payment schedule. You get in contact with your employer as soon as possible and ask how you continue to get your paycheck and health insurance and maintain benefits. On that point, we want to say there are places you may need to contact. You can contact your retirement company if you're retired, social service offices, the Social Security Administration, and they have a dedicated webpage. It's listed on our Weather Emergencies page, and they also have a toll-free number just for this. It's 1-800-772-1213. The The same goes for the VA. They have a dedicated page, and the toll-free number is 1-800-877-1000. It's important to give them your new location, whether it's temporary or permanent, and ask how you'll continue to get benefits. It's important to note that the U.S. Department of Labor works with state and local governments to issue unemployment insurance and other assistance, and the number is 1-866-4-USA-DL. Now, people hadn't put together their emergency kit to walk out the door with. They may need to replace vital documents like birth certificates, Social Security, Medicare cards, and more. So the VA.gov site has a place where you can get all that information. It's USA.gov/replace-vital-documents. And toll-free number is 1-844-UA-GOV1. Some of the documents need to be replaced if you don't have them. Are deeds and recorded real estate documents, mortgage and other credit issues, leases, insurance policy, wills. On our website, we actually tell you or tell whoever's visiting the site what agency or organization they need to visit. So, for example, if you need to get your auto title or driver's license replaced, it would be the Secretary of State or the Department of Motor Vehicles. Birth certificates would be Vital Statistics Office from the county where you were born. Social Security card is the Social Security Administration. Additional information on the website. So I think the last slide I just want to show is a bookmark of these websites and numbers that I think the people you serve may be interested in. Again, all of this information is on ftc.gov, Weather Emergencies, English and in Spanish. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them through site there that we're using today for the webinar. That kind of wraps up my presentation.
Thank you, Colleen, so much. We actually got one question while you were talking, although I think you just answered it, which is the FTC Weather Emergencies site and resources, I presume, going to be available in other languages, specifically besides English and Spanish, or is it just those two at this point?
Everything that we do in English, we do in Spanish, and then on an as-need basis, we do other languages as well. I don't know what the conversations are within the agency right now about adding additional languages for the weather emergencies, but it's certainly something to consider, especially after hearing Suzanne talk about the number. I think it's 17. She said different languages they have their materials available in.
Well, you got up with HUD here.
and Suzanne, I want you to know we link to HUD on our weather emergency site.
Great. By the way, thank you. The slide that we just put up, which has all the websites and phone numbers, is very helpful. And again, for those who want it sent to them afterwards, email the inbox, CFPB_Finex@CFPB.gov. Okay, one question. What was the 800-555-1212 number for? That was National Directory Assistance, right?
Yeah, that's just National Directory Assistance. So whether you want to find out the phone number for, hey, a rental car company, a financial institution, a credit card company, you just call them and tell them the name of the company, and they'll look it up for you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Colleen.
Sure.
We're going to just quickly move through a couple of things from the CFPB, and then we'll be open for other questions. But this is all very useful, and I have an urge to go home and start collecting my documents right now, actually. So terrific. So I'm now going to turn it over to Dubis Corial, my colleague here in the Office of Financial Education, to share a few tips. And some of this information is similar to what you've heard, so we'll kind of jump over things that are similar to what to others have said, but some ideas from the CFPB about financial recovery as well as preparedness. So for even those of you who are not currently in a disaster area, which is great, and we wish we were all in that position, it still makes sense to prepare. You never know when it can happen. So, Dubis, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Suzanne and Colleen, for that great information. So as Irene said, I'm going to go quickly through my slides because a lot of this has already been said. And just to say that our hearts are with all those who have been affected and trying to get back to normal. We understand that it takes time. So hopefully what we're going to provide helps in terms of getting back to normal. So some general tips, given many people are experiencing distress, it might be difficult to contact your creditors. So we're asking you to be patient, don't give up. And so you take care of the most urgent issues. Start thinking about your financial obligations. As Colleen mentioned, if you have a mortgage, you sort of have the compromise of continue with your payments. In terms of insurance, Colleen mentioned this. You have to contact your insurance company. If the storm damages your home, car, or property, and you have insurance, you can start the claims process by calling your insurance company. You verify that you have the right kind of coverage. If you cannot locate your policy, you have to read an electronic one because it might be very hard to get one by mail. Also, document the damage by taking pictures so that it will help with your claim. The information I think was provided by Suzanne, but it's going to be very helpful to have that information. In terms of your mortgage, talk to your mortgage lender right away and tell them about your situation. If you don't have their contact information, consider using the mortgage electronic registration system. You'll see the number on the screen, 888-679-6377. And depending on the type of loan you have, your lender might be willing to temporarily reduce or suspend your payments.
And a mortgage electronic registration system will help you identify who your servicer is that correct?
Yes,
okay.
That is
great.
Correct. With other loans like student loans or credit cards, be sure to contact your lender as well as soon as possible and explain your situation. Usually the lenders are willing to work with you, especially under these circumstances. So it's important that you make those calls before your next payment is due. As Colleen mentioned, contact your utility companies. If your home is damaged to the point that you can live in it, ask the utility company to suspend your service. It can help with your budgeting needs. We'll talk about other possible problems like scams or fraud, which Colleen alluded to as well. Unfortunately, during this difficult time, there is an increased risk for scams and fraud. To avoid scams, you need to ask questions. Questions can help you determine if something is too good to be true. Look for red flags always, and you see a couple of tips on the slide. Sort of aware of people who want you to pay upfront fees, contractors selling repairs door-to-door, charities, limited offers, especially they put a lot of pressure on you to make decisions in a short period of time. In terms of disaster preparedness, the recent disasters, sort of basing that can happen to anyone, and we were just discussing that ourselves, that when you see, you think about that you have to do it as well, because when that happens, you don't have time to react. So it's very important that you plan in advance. The Bureau, we have a tool that can help you keep track of the information, and Colleen was given some tips about, having the box in an accessible place and also something that is very secure. This checklist that you see on the screen can help us gather the financial information needed after an emergency. It has spaces for account information and customer service numbers, as well as checklists of other important documents we have in case of an emergency. So this is sort of for a lot of us who luckily are okay, but sort of this thing happening around the country and even in other countries makes us think about how we can plan in advance. So as I said, I was summarizing the very quickly. I would like now to turn it over to our colleague Jennifer from the Office of Older Americans.
I just want to say one thing first, which is that the screenshot that's still up there, the disaster checklist, it's a two-page folding thing with like 4 pages on it. It's a really nice resource, and as a financial, all of those of you who are financial educators, I know that disaster preparedness is, if you're not into disaster areas, probably not the first priority for people coming in the door. They're coming in with financial issues and crises and struggles. But I do think that if you can get people to focus on filling out this checklist, it actually helps to organize your financial information, which you kind of need to do anyways if you're going to be undergoing housing counseling, credit counseling. So it's a nice piece. It's simple. It's free. You can download it, order it on our website. And so I just want to make a plug for it because it's pretty nice. You can get everything in one place. And I see that, we have a couple questions related to this right here. What's the link to the document? The fastest way to get to it would be to go to the Adult Fin Ed page, so consumerfinance.gov, adult-financial-education, or if you have the main navigation bar at the top of consumerfinance.gov, there's a practitioner resources and the Adult Fin Ed pages there. And there it's organized by topic, so it's somewhere, and I think under money management you'll see it. You can link to both the download as well as the ordering. I think we can order this one, right?
Yeah,
for free.
You can simply Google CFPB disaster checklist, and it'll take you to
yes, Google might get you there faster. And then somebody asked a very good question, which is, are consumers able to complete the disaster checklist online and print it out, or is it only available in print? It is only available in print. Many of our tools are not yet fillable. Some of them are, but not this one. So you will need to print it out and use it, but you can order it for free and in bulk. So that may be something, again, for those of you with clients, people you serve, you may want to interest them to use this tool for preparedness, but also I think for general financial organization, it's not a bad thing. All right, so we have left our colleague Jennifer with not a lot of time. My apologies there, but we're very happy to have her here. The Office for Older Americans has done a lot. Oh, look, if anyone's looking at Q&A, a very helpful person actually put up the direct link to the disaster checklist, which I won't read because it's very long, but if you are on WebEx, look in the Q&A and you'll see that. Thank you very much. So I'm happy to have Jennifer here. The Office for Older Americans has done a lot on preventing fraud and exploitation of older Americans in general, and as I know Jennifer's going to say, that's a particularly vulnerable population in case of disaster and emergency. So she's going to run through a few slides on that. Again, sorry we've left you limited time, Jennifer, but I will turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you so much. I hope you all can hear me well. So I'll go through this super quickly, but I think in the short time I will just give you all just a brief heads up that we have this tool available. It truly is geared towards older adults, but is also very helpful for folks that we call family caregivers or financial caregivers. That's persons generally over the age of 50 who have an older adult family that they're looking out for. Thank you. So Money Smart for Older Adults is a comprehensive program with 300 minutes worth of curriculum geared towards older people and their family members and others. It covers a lot about frauds and scams and a lot of different topics, but one of the segments, which is why we wanted to be here today, is on preparing financially for disasters. We keep it simple because we are gearing this towards older, and there's so many other resources out there that I now realize we need to link to a couple that we haven't already linked to, so thank you to the other speakers. But I'm not going to repeat any of that. So the program comes with an instructor guide for those that want to train older adults or use a curriculum out in the field to help older people think about and prepare for disasters. It comes with a resource guide, which is a handout. It's standalone. You don't need to take a course to benefit from the resource guide. And it comes with a PowerPoint, which I'll show you a few slides here today. And I will mention that the resource guide and the instructor guide, primarily resource guide, most importantly, is in 14-point font, which is extremely important for older people. This was produced between us and the FDIC. It's the 12th in the family of Money Smart products. It is the one that is geared towards older people. And the whole curriculum is available for download at ftc.gov/money. You can go to their search tool and pull it up. Search Money Smart, and it will come up under Money Smart for Older Adults. Also, resource guides are available in bulk. You can order them from us free of charge, up to however many you need. Hand out wherever you are, whether you're conducting a course or whether you want to share them with other presentations that you're doing or at senior fairs or the like. So we can go to the next slide, please. One, as I said, is elder financial exploitation, which basically is theft, and that is really the theme of the entire Money Smart for Older Adults program. And in the context of what we're talking about here today, when contractors take advantage of older people in disasters, that is also a form of elder financial exploitation. And in some states, there are enhanced penalties and enhanced charges they brought against a contractor or another person who exploits an older adult. So why are adults at risk? In addition to this list, they have a cognitive impairments or have early mild cognitive impairments that makes it very difficult for them in terms of decision making or in terms of discerning a fraud or that makes them more vulnerable to persuasion. They're often the direct targets of scammers, including fraudulent contractors and others after a disaster. Generally don't plan ahead, and I say they, I use the term they sort of loosely because neither do we. We're not all very good at planning ahead, but older people don't generally plan ahead for cognitive impairment, and they often don't plan ahead for disasters like the rest of us. They also live in disaster zones, and especially in some of the disaster zones that are being very hard hit recently. For example, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Gulf Coast states, in the tornado alleys, in state, older people are everywhere, but there are large concentrations of older people in Florida and along the coastlines, so they're particularly vulnerable in the event of a disaster. In the event of a disaster, because of all the things I mentioned before, and mobility issues, health problems, and others, hearing problems, difficulty navigating communication systems, they may well be, and many of them be, ill-equipped to navigate in the recovery process. Next slide, please. In terms of elder abuse or elder financial exploitation in general, adult protective services and the local police are where you go to report such a thing, whether you know it's happened or not, suspected elder financial exploitation or any kind of elder abuse. But in the case of disaster, to put it into context, adult protective services may be able to intervene in the event of a contractor fraud or other issue. They may be able to find resources for older people in terms of helping them get to shelters. And they definitely are very well tuned to dealing with incapacitated elders, those who have a mental or a physical incapacity or lack of capacity to be able to handle their affairs or to get to where they need to be. Of course, all services are compromised in a disaster when it's happening, but just so they're there in case you're not already aware. In terms of disasters, I know that attorneys general often take special measures to focus on frauds by contractors and the sort of traveler rings that will move into disaster areas, targeting anyone and everyone for sure, but they do love to find a senior who is more vulnerable and an earmark for their scams. Better Business Bureaus in some states are tremendously active around disasters. Louisiana is a pretty good example of that. There's 4 Bs there that coordinate with each other and are very, very sensitive to the issues of older people. I don't know about other places, but I'm assuming BBBs are very aware of the issues, so they're another potential resource. slide. Just a quick look at the slides. I see we're at 303. Just what to keep or to keep it. It's all the above that was mentioned earlier, plus this. Keep it simple. I just want to mention that sheltering is tremendously difficult for older people due to their mobility issues. They often don't pack their medications. They lose their medications, and oftentimes there's no pharmacies open. So this is all the more reason that they need to be thinking about this in advance. And, of course, by teaching one senior, they may talk about it with others in their community. So we hope that's one of our goals with the Money Smart for Older Adults program, is to sort of mobilize knowledgeable seniors on the ground who can talk to each other. Next slide. What else to consider? One notice that we don't have on the list that we need to add is the keeping emergency cash in a secure location. And, of course, many older people are very low income and may not be able to do that, but I appreciated hearing that reminder there because we've seen firsthand how important that is. It's sort of myth that older people are not on the internet. Certainly old as we call them, the over 75 group, the numbers plunged dramatically, but the 60 to 75-year-old group are a lot more internet savvy than many of us give them credit for. And also, of course, a message for the financial caregivers of adult children 50 plus to be thinking about these things for their own family members. Next slide, just about done. Resources also on disaster preparedness, in addition to those you've heard today from our colleagues on the line, our other speakers. Also, the FDIC's website has some great resources under, if you type disaster. Next slide, I just wanted to mention a little bit, show you the contractor home improvement fraud slides. You can just go on through. Next slide. Yep, slide. This is, we see a lot after disasters is sort of the vultures that circle around and are talking fast at an older adult's front door and saying they'll give them the best discount and try to get them to agree right then and there, and to pay cash up front, they disappear. More items here on down you see never pay in advance, never pay cash. Just some good sense tips on avoiding contractor fraud. And last but not least, a few more. Consumer FTC there. You guys have great materials. We refer to you a lot throughout Money Smart. And I believe, is that the last slide there? Yep, that's it. Thanks for the time.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I know we're over. I'm going to see if I think we'll actually skip the voice questions. We have so much stuff to talk about today. Are there any questions, final questions? Want to pop them quickly into the Q&A box, but I want to be respectful of people's time. This was useful. What's up on the screen right now is just a link to our web page, the Adult Financial Education page, where you can find, for example, the checklist and other resources. That was, again, just relaunched earlier this week. To sign up for Finex, or if you have any questions, or if you want this PowerPoint, because all those cool phone numbers you saw that I'm sure nobody was able to write down because there were a lot of them. The email address is now up on the screen, but it is CFPB_Finex, F-I-N-E-X, at CFPB.gov. Again, CFPB_Finex at CFPB.gov. If you want the PowerPoint, email that address and just say you want it, and I will send it to you tomorrow morning. So let's see. I can see where people are dropping off now because we're 7 minutes over. So this was great, and I'm sure people had questions. I'm sorry we had so much content today that somehow we ran out of time for questions. But I want to thank our speakers, Suzanne, Colleen, Dubis, and Jennifer, for a great presentation. Again, this was also recorded. It will take a couple weeks before it goes up, but it will eventually be up on our webpage, and you can watch it if you wish or share it with others. I think we're going to have to stop here since we're already over. But thank you very much. I hope we're all inspired to go home, work with our people we serve around this stuff, and probably even prepare your own documents for any, for issues that may happen to any of us, really. So, again, I'll repeat what Dubis said. Our hearts go out to everyone who's actually dealing with a disaster or weather emergency situation now, and I hope everybody can be better prepared as a result of this fire and of seeing what others are going through. So thank you very much. We appreciate everyone being on the webinar today. And also feel free to send any questions to that Finex inbox. I can forward it on to our speakers if you have additional questions you want answered that we obviously didn't have for today. So thank you very much, and we will end the webinar now.
Stand by, all participants. This concludes today's conference, and you may disconnect at this time. Thank you for your participation.